Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Push Start Media Network, where you can't do anything in life
unless you push start.
Yes. Today on How We'd Book It, we had a few options planned, but we just threw something together last minute, you know. Today we're going to be talking about Braun Strowman and how we'd book him after his 90-day no-compete clause is up.
When did you say that is?
So he was released early June. So the way I looked it up yesterday. I don't remember his exact release date, but the end of the 90-day no-compete clause comes in August 31st.
Ah, okay.
So after SummerSlam, September, so around the fall area. But yeah, Braun Strowman, one of those I never thought would get released because he was Vince's pet project, one of his guys. You know, he likes some big meaty men.
Yeah, well, as much money as I saw he was making, I completely see why they released him too.
Especially if they're about to sell the company.
Well, when nor here nor there, whether they are or whether they aren't, as much money as he was making. I mean, when's the last time he actually won a match?
It's been a while.
I mean, it's just they weren't doing anything with him, and I don't know. I've never been a big fan.
I like him. I do, because I like those bigger guys. And he was honestly one of my favorites just because of like his wrestling. So I like the brutality aspect of it.
He was not, I don't know. I mean, somebody that big is going to use a British Bulldog power slam as a finishing move. Come on now.
See, I would say the same thing, but I listened to an interview with Heyman years ago. He was like, well, what if you have someone like Mark Henry doing like a shoulder claw? Like, it's not any move. It's not a big move. But if Mark Henry does it and he taps out a bunch of people, it makes the move look dangerous.
No, I agree. It's just a very, you know, that running power slam for me is something you would have seen back in the 80s, late 70s. For the things that they put on TV now, it's just a very, you know,
lackluster finish.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't build up a climax or anything. It's just like, okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. But let's talk about Strowman's debut. He debuted with the Wyatt family: Eric Rowan, Luke Harper, Bray Wyatt,
as the Black Sheep.
Yeah, if y'all heard that, my AC unit was on because it is hot here in Virginia.
Humid.
Yes, and we were trying to stay cool. But back to Braun Strowman. Yes, he was the black sheep of the family, and when he debuted, it was like, who is this guy? But then I actually grew to like him.
I wanted that angle to go somewhere. I didn't know who they were going to, well, I didn't have anybody in mind for who they were going to use, but he kept talking about Sister Abigail's gift to him and this, that, and the other. And I actually wanted him to come out with somebody playing the role of Sister Abigail, and that just never came to fruition.
No, it didn't, unfortunately. And it's one of the many WWE failures over the past decade. We can go into an entire list of that.
I always wanted them to get Rosemary for that role, but that didn't happen either. So
she's in TNA now, right?
Yeah, she's been in TNA on and off for years.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, debuting with the Wyatt family and then going on to be the monster among men. He ran through everybody at some point.
That's one way to look at it.
Well, I mean, what's another way?
Name me a good Braun Strowman match.
I enjoyed the Fatal 4-Way at SummerSlam with him, Joe, Lesnar, and who was the other guy? I don't remember the other guy. I'm going to be real with you. He's
one of those guys. There's not a whole lot to do with him. I mean, he's not that great in the ring. His promos aren't that great. And, you know, maybe that's why they released him. Maybe, you know, Vince had put so much time and effort into him. And now one thing I will give him, I mean, he did get into great shape from the time he debuted. He looked like he had a little bit of a beer belly going on when he debuted, and he got in phenomenal shape.
I don't think that was a beer belly as much as it was he was eating and bulking and lifting because he used to be a power lifter.
No.
So you know those guys, they look fat like the linemen, NFL linemen, but they're not.
Either or, whatever it was. He
cut down.
He got in phenomenal shape.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you. He did get in phenomenal shape, and then he went on to, thank God, beat Bill Goldberg at WrestleMania for the Universal title.
Yeah, it was supposed to be what, Roman and Goldberg.
Yeah,
right?
It's supposed to be Roman and Goldberg.
I mean, anybody they would have put against Goldberg was going over that night because Goldberg was only back for, 30, 40 days.
Yeah, where he beat the Fiend and then
lead up to WrestleMania.
Bunch of dumb shit. So Strowman, though, like, out of all his WWE, his whole entire run, I don't think it was bad. I mean, he was a former tag team champion. I think he won the Intercontinental title at some point. Universal
former
champion.
tag team champion with Nicholas.
Yeah, Nicholas.
Wow.
And then wasn't he a tag team champion with Seth Rollins or something like that?
I don't remember.
I don't exactly remember. I think he was.
For all the knowledge I have, noticed I did not pay much attention to this dude.
Yeah, he reminds me of like an early 80s guy or late 80s guy, like where you'd have like the old WWE guys, the big guys, Hulk Hogan could be a good example. Just that kind of style. He would have been great in the 80s.
Yeah, he would have been. Yeah, but again, if he was there in the 80s, they would have done the same thing with him they did like with the one man gang, the big boss man. That was just, he would have been one more big guy. They built up, fed to Hogan, and then he drifted off to mid card status.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Kamala, there's a long line of names that they did that with Hogan with. That's why Bruiser Brody never would come in.
I don't blame him for that. I don't. But yeah, Strowman right before his release, he was in the main event team, so that his release caught me off guard.
It did me too, but I will say when I saw the money figures that, I wasn't surprised, but I will say if he shows back up after Joe reappeared, I would not be surprised to see Strowman back at a different deal.
Yeah, they might be like, hey man, like WWE is losing money, which they're not. We all know they're making more money now than they've ever made.
Oh yeah.
But they'll be like, hey, we were paying you $1.2 million a year. All we can do is let's say $700,000 a year.
I mean, and they are going back on the road. So, I mean, he's another name that they could advertise to put some asses in seats if these, some of these guys' kids wanted to see Braun Strowman.
Yeah, doing the choo-choo gimmick.
Oh, Lord, don't get me started.
Choo-choo.
And then miss them by 5 foot.
I mean, they still went flying, though.
Yeah. And then they got released. Huh. Oh, Lord.
Yeah, it seems like it was just a release after a release after a release. The biggest ones being Tommy End, Aleister Black. Buddy Murphy is another one that we're going to discuss here on the show. But at this point, it looks like Buddy Murphy ate Buddy Murphy. So
I'm telling you, it was just the angle, man. Get off.
I don't know, man.
Get off that picture, dude.
I don't know. I was like, holy shit. Like, I could see him doing some crazy shit on the indies. Apparently, a lot of promoters want him too because he can put on dream matches. I'm kind of hoping he goes to AEW, but that's another topic for another day. So, but yeah, we're here to talk about Braun Strowman. So,
Strong Broman?
Yeah, Strong Broman. I mean, that might be his new name. You never know.
I think, honestly, if he goes somewhere, it'll be something strong, man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can agree. Because you can't use Braun Strowman on the indie on any type of indies, New Japan, NWA, any type. He can use like Braun Strowman, something like that.
And for what I heard, he's charging. We might not see him for a while.
Yeah, I never understood that $20,000 per appearance.
I mean, even Flair and Hogan were only getting like 10.
Yeah, look. That's another thing. I listened to an interview with Cody, and he talked to Daniel Bryan when he got released. He's like, "Hey, man, like I want to do this indies, but I don't want to overcharge, but I want to get a fair amount." He's like, "Look, dude, don't charge more than $2,000 for an appearance."
Yeah, nobody's paying $20,000 to see Braun Strowman.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, I like him and he's a name, sure, but at the end of the day, that's probably their budget for the entire show, if not more.
Yeah, see, I'm probably going to go a different way with this one. I see opportunity for the character, for the promoters, not necessarily the performer.
Yeah. No, I agree. So this is a part of the show where we book Braun Strowman. Jason, you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I see what I would like to see happen. Like, okay, let's say he doesn't charge that bullshit amount that, he's trying to charge. $20,000 is a ridiculous amount for any performer to try and charge.
Hey, but in his defense, if you can get it, brother, get it.
If you can get it, yes, but like, don't try to bankrupt promoters. I would say, like, look, you're going to make more off your merchandise sales, your autographs, your pictures. Just charge a decent amount, and then you're good, dude.
I mean, he reminds me a little of Edge. I mean, I know he hadn't made as much money as Edge did, but
yeah,
he's from the hills of North Carolina, and he's been there 6-7 years now. And so he's living out in the hills, probably in a very nice house, but I'm sure it's paid for, and he's probably got a shitload of money to bank. He doesn't need it.
No, I agree.
I mean, right now, anyway.
Yeah.
So If
he doesn't like wrestling, I mean, I can understand and be like, all right, dude, like whatever. But let's say he likes wrestling and he comes to his senses like, all right, I know I can't charge as much, but he can charge something. So what I would like to see him do is go to New Japan and run through all those guys and become the New Japan World Champion, IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Because at the end of the day, like, who do you have that could beat him? I'd like to see hit matches with him against Kota Ibushi and, Naito, any of those guys. Have him, go against the Bullet Club because that's a credible threat. But like, I think him in New Japan, the Japanese crowd would love him because they love those big American guys. They loved Bruiser Brody back in the day. They loved
Vader.
They loved Bam Bam.
Gaijin.
Yeah. They love those guys. So I think if he was smart, he would go to New Japan. New Japan will give him a decent amount of money, not the money he's making in WWE, but he'll make a good amount. And it's a good experience to go to Japan if he wants to do that.
If he wants to. It's just going to depend on what the money is, But again, like I said, I would go a different way with it. If I was the promoters, I would look at it as a different way to get my guys over.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, you're going to have to pay him a decent amount. I think he's smart enough to realize, and his agent's smart enough to realize, no, he's not going to make $1.2 million a year, which technically between different organizations, he very well might if he's smart about it.
Yes.
If he goes different places. If they wanted to use him in Impact to bring him in as a credible threat to Kenny, whatever, because there's nobody in Impact that's a credible threat to Kenny.
No.
To get their title back. If I was AEW, I would bring him in on kind of like the WCW did the Warrior deal, and just flat out let him know, hey, we're going to feed you a few guys, but then we're going to feed you to Kenny. Because one of the knocks on Kenny's, he's wrestling all these smaller guys.
Yeah, he hasn't wrestled any big guy except for did he wrestle Archer?
I don't think so. If he did, it was a long time ago. Not since this new heel run he's on.
Yeah.
I mean, and I would put him in. If New Japan wanted to bring him in, they could, but I would make him work his way up. I mean, you can't bring him in because Japan fans are smart, man. They keep an eye on the internet. They keep an eye on the books. They keep an eye on what's going on. And that's why Vader and some of those other, like Dr. Death. I mean, those guys were very protective of their Japan deals back in the day. Dr. Death's a good example. When him and Mike Rotunda were the World Tag Team Champions, that's why you didn't see the belts going a lot of those guys back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bruiser Brody, he never lost, like laid down to an NWA champion when he was in the match. It was always a DQ, count out, some kind of screw job finish, but he was not going to put his shoulders on the mat and screw up that Japan deal. Vader, that was a lot of, because Vader, when he went to WWE, still had his Japan deal. A lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
And that's where a lot of his issues came when they wanted him to lay down for certain people and wanted him to do this and do that. That's where a lot of his back and forth backstage came from, because, he knew if it didn't work out, he liked Japan. I mean, before he got to Japan, he was just bull power Leon White in the AWA. He was kind of mid card.
Yeah.
Funny story about the Vader gimmick. Do you know who the original Vader was supposed to be?
No.
Take a wild guess.
Arn Anderson.
No.
I have no idea.
The Ultimate Warrior.
Jesus Christ. When
he left World Class as the Dingo Warrior, he was supposed to be headed to Japan, and that's the gimmick they were going to give him was Vader. But he wound up signing with the WWF. And, coming in, and, the rest, as they say, is history. But Leon White left the AWA to go to Japan. And again, like you were talking about, they like those bigger guys, and they put the Vader gimmick on Leon White.
Makes sense. It worked out well for him too.
But I mean, yeah, it did. I mean, yeah, we would, if the Warrior would have become Vader, we wouldn't even know who the hell the character was. He'd have blew that in a week.
Yeah.
But again, with Braun, I mean, they're not going to bring him in. That's the position he's in. They're not going to bring him in and let him start running through talent like you're talking about. Especially in Japan with what he's been through. That's kind of where I was going with that, because of, like I said, when's the last time he actually won a match?
It's been a while. His last credible main event scene was against Bill Goldberg at the last WrestleMania, not this past one, but the last one before. You bring him in as maybe a surprise mystery partner for somebody, Nicholas.
A let him get his ass kicked, in a 3-on-1, 4-on-1, whatever, and you build him up that way without making him take a loss. But where you build him back up, you just can't bring him in as a, I'm gonna let him run through the roster. But like I said, if I was promoters, while his name's still hot, while his face is still hot, I'd bring him into the NWA and put Magnus over him. I'd bring him into AEW, kind of like I said, kind of what I was going with that when they brought the Warrior in the WCW for that short amount of time. And even though Hogan denies it this day, we all know what it was. When Hogan laid down for him at WrestleMania 6, it was supposed to be he was going to get his win back at some point, and it never happened because of how flaky the Warrior was. And, so yeah, I mean, he was brought in specifically, I don't care what anybody says, for Hogan to get his win back. And that match turned out awful.
As many Ultimate Warrior matches did.
Well, the WrestleMania 6 was actually, if you go back and watch it, was not a bad match for the two of them, because normally, Hogan would have somebody in there that he could carry, or they could carry him, and vice versa with the Warrior. I mean, but when they booked that match for WrestleMania 6, I was like, oh God, look at this train wreck about to happen. But I mean, it was not a bad match. I mean, for the two of them, and they and Hogan said, and he was right, for as many people that don't like Hogan, Hogan, after he lost the match and he was on the little thing that was riding to the back, the little ring that rode into the back, and everybody's, looking at him and pointing at him, and he's pointing back at the ring. He said he knew then they chose the wrong guy.
Which they did. Warrior was never meant to be the guy. I mean, nobody, I'm sorry, rest in peace, Warrior, but what the fuck?
He could have been. I mean, he just, the gimmick, the crowd loved him. Like Bobby Heenan said, the entrance was great, but then the bell had to ring.
Same with Sandman. I love the Sandman, but that man can't wrestle. Love the entrance.
Well, I mean, Strowman's under the same thing with some of it. I mean, he's got to have somebody in there that can be a good dance partner. You can't just put him in there with anybody.
Yeah.
And, if you look at some of his better matches, it was again with Roman, with Seth, people that could, guide him through. Yeah. Lesnar's Lesnar. I mean, it's just, but so, he was in there with big names that could walk him through the match. I mean, so at this point, like I said, and he's got to drop his price. But I mean, for me, I would just be, hey, look, man, we'll bring you in, we'll feed you a couple of our mid-level guys, make you look strong, but then you're going to lay down for our champion.
Which would make sense. I mean, I'd love to see Magnus get over on him. Magnus is what, 6'4", 6'5"?
Hey, a big boy.
Yeah, he's a pretty big guy. So that's a believable match. And Magnus can go. So, and he needs that big victory, because who do you have in NWA? His last challenger was Trevor Murdoch.
No, see, I haven't watched that stuff since they took it off Access TV.
Yeah,
so.
his last defense was Trevor Murdoch. And if you don't know who Trevor Murdoch is, he was in a tag team with Lance Cade in WWE back in 08, 09.
And I mean, if you put him in New Japan, I mean, you couldn't put him right in the title scene, because Ospreay's just not big enough to look like he's going.
Ospreay's not the champion anymore.
No, when did he lose it?
He had a neck injury and had to vacate.
Oh,
I don't know who the current champion is, but
you learn something new every day.
Yeah, because we don't keep up with New Japan like that. The only thing I ever see from New Japan is the headlines. And yes, Will Ospreay did have to vacate the title, but I don't remember who the new champion is.
I mean, like I said, I know that's a different way to go at it, but in my opinion, like these indie promoters, who's a Ring of Honor champion right now? Do we know?
I have no idea.
But like I said, for the all-time promoters, I mean, and I know AEW's, the next thing to the WWE, but I mean, it's still small in comparison.
Yeah.
I mean, take advantage of what Vince did. Vince released one of his boys. He released a former, Universal champion. He released a guy that he had put over top of a lot of different people, and you take advantage of it. Say, all right, man, we're going to pay you, but you're going to lay down. You're going to lay down for Kenny. You're going to lay down for whoever.
Yeah, have him go. Have their guys go over him. I can see that, because
hell, I'd even make him lay down for Archer if I brought him into AEW for a few months.
Yeah,
to try to get it, because Archer's going to be there. Try to get some of your, try to use him to get some of your guys over.
Yeah, especially some of the bigger guys. I mean, maybe have Miro go over on him in a TNT title defense.
You could do that too. At the end of the day, I mean, I don't know what Rowan's deal is, but I mean, if you really wanted to keep the Dark Order together, as a tribute to Brody Lee, bring him in, put him in charge of the Dark Order. I mean, that's another big guy like Brody was. You know, I mean, I don't know what they were going to do with Brody. You never know. I mean, but you come in and if you want to keep him around for a while, but I don't think he's I don't think he's a draw.
You don't think he's a big enough name?
No, I don't.
Well, I mean, not for $1.2 million or $20,000.
I mean, and nothing against Brody Lee. I mean, he's a bigger name than Brody was because he's a former Universal Champion and everything like that. But I also, Brody Lee's one of those few guys that you've never heard a guy say a bad word about, in this business, and that's very rare. Yeah, very rare. And I mean, I've never heard anything bad about Braun. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what how he is backstage or anything like that. But I mean, like I said, if I would go from a different angle. I mean, if him make whatever money I could.
But you would have him job out to people.
The bigger names I would. Like I said, I'd feed him some of my mid card guys.
Yeah.
But when it came to, like I said, I mean, Kenny needs a big name in my opinion. I know you like Kenny, and it's not that big, it's whatever. But in my opinion, Kenny's not. I know they're trying to promote Jungle Boy, and I think he'll be a star down the road. But Kenny beating people like Jungle Boy in title matches, it's not currying him any favor. Yes, yeah. It's not currying him any favor. Kenny went over, but Jungle Boy got over. Kenny, Kenny did what he was supposed to do. That was the job of the NWA champion. That was the job of every champion back in the day, except for Hogan.
Damn it, Hogan.
Well, I mean, that's they changed gears with that and all whatever. But I mean, that was what Flair was so good at back in the day, going to Memphis, going to Florida, and taking a guy that, Flair defended the title against Coco Beware. Well, Coco Ware at the time in Memphis. I mean, that's the champion's job. I mean, Kenny's doing good at it. I'll give him that. I mean, I'm trying to be more open to some of this stuff. But they're supposed to go out there and take, a broomstick and look like it could beat them. And in the end, come out on top and keep the title.
Kenny wrestled a blow-up doll.
Oh, don't get me started on that. Like last night on Dynamite, until I saw that him and Jericho were going to have MJF and Jericho were going to have a face-to-face about another match, I thought they might actually put Sammy over. And then I saw that, I'm like, no.
Oh, yeah. As soon as they said they're doing a
Jericho MJF, I'm like, nope, Sammy's not going over.
I knew I was like, look, if they're smart about this, they did exactly what I thought they were going to do. I'm like, look, Sammy looked great the entire match, and you believed he was going to win. And then you had somebody interfere to help MJF win.
But see, that's where the promoters also need to stay away from it too. Take Sammy. I mean, Sammy's red hot right now.
Yeah.
So if you bring in Braun, you keep Sammy away from Braun.
Yes.
Because Sammy, Jungle Boy too. You keep those type of guys away from him because the believability of it, the aspect of it, neither one of them, Braun, get away from me. I mean, you keep those guys that you want. That's why I'm saying you bring him in as a promoter and you use him for what you want to use him for.
No, I agree. Because, I mean, if they put him up against anybody like Sammy or, Jungle Boy, I mean, there's no believable way for them to beat him.
Oh, like a big guy, though. You could feed him Luchasaurus. I mean, that's, that's a gimmick. You throw Luchasaurus at him, 2.5 minute match, power slam, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, you feed him some of your mid card guys, but nobody that Luchasaurus is not somebody they're going to elevate to the top.
No, he'll never be a main eventer.
Exactly. I mean, you take people like that and you feed them to him and you let it, in Braun, you make your money and, but like I said, again, it might be all for naught because I do think he'll be back in WWE.
What the hell?
She wanted in on the conversation.
You didn't say anything about that. Said something about the prime minister. Like, bro.
So, but yeah, that's what I would do with it. What about you?
Like I said, I would have him go to New Japan. I would have him run through a bunch of the smaller guys and eventually win the IWGP World Heavyweight title and then eventually face Kenny and lose the belt.
Do they have a working relationship now or no?
I mean, Kenta appeared on AEW.
Yeah, I know he did, but I mean, you can set up one-time things, but
I don't know. I think they do, but I haven't seen any more New Japan guys ever since. That I mean, I know a bunch of New Japan guys have went to Shingo Taki Takagi is the current IWGP Heavyweight Champion.
Never heard of him.
I don't know who he is, and I'm sorry I butchered that name. But like I was saying, I don't know if they have a working relationship. I know a lot of the New Japan guys have gone to Impact Wrestling. Finn Juice won their tag belts. Another guy wrestled for the.
Are they still the tag champions?
No, Eric Young's stable cashed in their Feast or Fired and won the belts.
Oh,
so
shows you how much I'm keeping up with that too.
Yeah, I mean it's occasional for me when I'm able to watch it. Like tonight, I ain't gonna be able to watch it. I might try and watch it on my phone at work. If you're my employer, you didn't hear me say that.
I didn't hear nothing.
I didn't hear shit. But yeah, that's how I would book Braun Strowman.
Yeah, like I said, I would. Yeah, as a promoter, I just use him. But we'll see.
Yeah, guys. Let us know in the comments of the YouTube video how you would book
him.
Yeah, him. Braun Strowman. Sorry, I got a little tongue-tied there for a second, but we still are doing a giveaway for our Matt and Jeff Hardy figures, the Jeff Hardy episode. How would you book Jeff Hardy going to AEW? Let us know, or just going anywhere. Email me at christianingramyt@gmail.com, and you could potentially win a WWE Elite Jeff Hardy figure and AEW Unrivaled Matt Hardy figure. We'll pick the best one in the next episode, which I don't know what our next episode is going to be about, so be on the lookout.
Yeah, we have some people that want to join us for Sting and
Buddy Murphy.
Buddy Murphy. So depending on if we can get all that together, and if not, we'll go a different way.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. But yeah, that's
I'll give you food for thought and your buddy on the Sting episode.
Okay.
You watched the last Nitro, right?
Yeah.
You saw how bad a shape Sting and Flair both were in.
Extremely.
Well, if as a competitor or as the booker, first thing I would have told Sting is grow your hair. I'll pay for these shots to grow your hair back out. Get your ass in the gym. I want the guy that started painting his face and it was up in the rafters. I want that dude. I don't want this dude that I just saw wrestle Ric Flair.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
So So no, I would not had him as part of the invasion angle.
No, I agree with you. I don't think I would have brought him in during the invasion.
So
I would have brought him in WWE afterwards, but I wouldn't have brought him in.
Given the fact he listened to me.
Yeah, well, hindsight 20.
I mean, he looked good in some of his TNA runs, but it would have been like, look, man, I want you, but
not this you.
If you come in looking like this, you're gonna lay down to everybody I got.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree.
But as far as Braun Strowman goes, he wants him to run through New Japan, and I just want the promoters to run through him and get out of him what they can. So
yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the end of the show, guys. Like I said, let us know what you think.
Yep, and when it comes to Braun Strowman, that's how we'd book it.